Hello, it's me, Helene, here with our collared cowl neck warmer to finish our border round variations and join our two sides together. All right, so now we are going to slip stitch into the back loop all the way around. Now, if you are working on the side where you ended, all right, I'll show you this first. You still are going to chain one, but don't flip your work over, just keep it on that side and turn now to the edge of your double crochets for your ribbing. And then you slip stitch into the back of the first loop, okay? And in each loop all the way down the long side. Okay, you're going to have to fit it in there. It's a little tricky going through this side, but you'll just have to work it. And again, you can grab a smaller hook to get that started if you like. It's just those first few stitches that's a little more tricky, tight getting in there, and then the rest are so much easier. Okay, and then you can just fly along. Now don't do your slip stitches tight. You want to have some elasticity to it. All right, so see how that gives you just a really nice clean edge there. Okay, so now I'm going to work along that side when I come back down the other end. Okay, so for this side, if you landed where I am on the rib side, then you do your chain one and slip stitch through the first and all the way across. Not so loose and sloppy, but just even. I'm going to use a light hand to that. And then just as I showed on this edge here, that's what we're going to do along this edge. And you will chain one around all four corners to make that corner. Okay. I am to my corner. That's my last, it's the top of my last that double crochet or alternate. Chain one, and then now work into the back loop of the next stitch, very next, and each stitch along the side. Okay, now here we are in line and up on the main body of our work, and if you haven't noticed already, on the long side where we begin with our single crochets, we're going to end where one side is on the wrong side and the other end is on the right side. So I'm on the wrong side where the ribbed pattern is of the border. So on the wrong side of the work, I'm going to be working into the front loop, doing my slip stitch into the front loop. And on the right side of the work, I will be working into the back loop. Because if you work in the back loop on this wrong side, you can see that the stitches are reversed. You will get your finishing edge. It'll wind up being on the inside, and it will cause that portion of your work to roll in a little bit. Okay? All right, well, I will see you at the other end, and then we'll make that corner together. I'm back at the end of my first long side. We got front loop on that edge into the last stitch, and now again chain one, Keep your work facing upright. Turn so the raw edge is at the top again. And now to this next stitch, catch the back loop and the stitch thereafter next to it, the back loop. You want to do again the same number across this edge that you did on the edge where you worked your double crochet and post stitches. So if you did 13 double crochets across, you will need to do 13 slip stitches plus your chain 1 for your corners. All right? And don't count the chain 1 as a stitch, just the slip stitches. And when you get to the corner where your beginning tail, your beginning slip knot is, you will have a little extra stitch on the end because this is where we either chained and then did our single crochet or did the foundation single crochet where you built the 2 in 1. Either way, you have that little extra chain at the end. So what I am going to do here's my last full stitch. I'm going to chain 1 and then bring that other long side to the top, and I am going to ignore this beginning slip stitch, kind of a non-stitch here. Tuck that back, but into the very next stitch right next to it, it's going to be a little bit tight. Go into the back loop because that is actually our first full stitch, and then that is where you will slip stitch. And then now working into the back loops, if you are on the right side of your work and did the ribbed portion, now this edge is the right side of your work. And then continue along this long side and into the back loops. Continue with your slip stitches all the way down. Okay, and you see how that cinched in the little gap of that non-stitch at the end. And now we're going to have even corners on both sides and at both ends. So I'm going to go ahead, I will work this long end, and then I will meet you at the other corner and just finish that up with you. Okay, so I will see you there. All right, I'm back to my last little edge here. This is all the yarn I have left out of that skein. That is really cutting it, and just enough to sew the two sides together. All right, so I finished my last full stitch as part of the main pattern. Here's the last stitch, okay? So I went back and I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make sure that's a slip stitch, or is that a chain? That's a chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 slip stitches across now to this end. Here's 1, 2, just have to fit it in wherever it's going to go and looks nice and neat. 3, 4, and 5, and then now I'm going to chain 1 and slip stitch back to the beginning, and I'm going through both loops that time to anchor that. Okay, and then if you want, you can slip stitch down this front side if you have enough yarn left and like an extra little edging. So I'm going to show you. You see this without, okay? Now I'm going to show you with. So into the next stitch, excuse me, yeah, let's see, I think here, if I were to end it, I would then slip stitch through both. Let's put it that way. All right, and then I will cut my yarn, right? But if I want to have the edge, then I go into the next stitch and then slip stitch in the back of my double crochets all the way across, and you can do a few. See how you like that, if you need that extra little bit of length or not. I did slip stitch across on my brown one. Okay. But I'm working with a solid color here, and I wanted to have this piping all the way through. But this one, I'm thinking I like it without. I like ending in that soft gray, so that's what I'm going to do with this one. If you want to go all the way across, then you just go ahead, slip stitch to the end, and then you can slip stitch through both if you want on the next stitch over, or stop at the top, whatever you feel looks the cleanest and nicest to you. All right. Don't cut the yarn yet. So just take your length, all right, and you're going to take one side, you see, and you fold it. You just fold it into the front. And then you do the same with your other side. You take that and you fold it across and you meet in the middle. So the end with the post stitches are going to go on top. Okay, and then what you can decide is, right, this is how it's going to go on your body. Do you want the buttons facing on the left side? All right. Or do you want them facing on the right side? And if you do, then you just simply turn your piece the other way around. So I had my ribbing here on the left, and I'm just going to turn it around where my ribbing now is on the right. So when I fold it, it folds over. And you see, and then now my buttons would be on the right hand side. The only thing is, depending on which side you are going with, whether this highly textured side or the ribbed side, if you fold it so that we finish with the tail end that's at the top rather than the point in the center, then you can begin sewing here and you have one continuous piece. You see, you go down the one side up to the point and then back up the other side and you're done. So I think that's what I'm going to go with, just to simplify it and keep that streamlined as possible. I think both sides look just as good. I suggest put your buttons on first because that is the easiest thing to do, and then you don't have to try to attach them when your two ends are attached and fiddle with that. And weave in your ends underneath. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, attach mine, and then I'll get you started with sewing in the two sides together. All right, so before you sew your two sides together, if you want to have a contrasting effect, such as I did here, that gives this piping look and a little bit of rope effect on the inside, all I did was slip stitch again all the way around. I did not chain one in my corners. I just went right into the next stitch and then I slip stitched, and then as I slip stitch into the back loop only, again the new slip stitch covers up that back loop, and then all you see is the front loop, creating this piping rope effect. And then by just slip stitching all the way around and making sure that your slip stitches aren't tight and will cause your work to curl over, but you have nice, smooth, and maybe a little more elongated slip stitches in the corner, kind of curves and softens these edges a little bit, rather than have them so squared off here. Okay, so that's another option for you to do that. As mentioned, I'm going to end here, so I'm going to slip stitch into both loops of my beginning stitch. Now what I did was I went ahead on this one, I sewed my two ends together first and then I realized after that you know, I really wanted a little something extra on there. So what I did, rather than take it all apart, I started from the very inside. I attached my new yarn, I chained one, and then I just slip stitched all the way around. Okay, kept going along the edge, then back over to this, went to this side here, and then all the way around and around and around, and then that brought me right back up to this side underneath. I went as far as I could go on the inside so it looks seamless, like it was meant to be, and then I slip stitched over to the next stitch on this side, and then I buried my yarn on the inside, made a knot on the inside in here, and then yeah, so that's it on that one. So it can be done even after the fact. Just start on the inside and you keep going, it'll take you all the way around. Okay, so now for this one, I have a very long tail. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that. If you have a lot of yarn left and you're not working from an already end piece that's been cut, what I suggest is you take the length of your yarn, you bring it down to the point, and then across to where the bottom of your other piece is, okay? And then you double that length, and then add some for your tail end to sew in bulky yarn. I do a little extra because it gets eaten up, used up pretty quickly. And then I add a little bit more to account for all this thickness that we're working through. So grab your large eye yarn needle. And then actually what I do, so I don't have a real, like you can have, if you can knot it if you want, it depends how visible that knot is. That one blends in pretty well, so I'm going to go ahead and knot that gently, but don't cinch it tight so you wind up with a big fat ball on the end. You can get some stitch markers, pins, whatever you want if you need to attach and mark your spots. So what I would do if you need to do that, get your end pieces in the center, line those up, one in the center on each side, and then one on the end here. Okay, but I'm going to just kind of eyeball that, because once I attach this end piece to the other side, then it's all going to line up along the edge where I need to be. Then I really take my time with this. So I go through both stitches on the other side, right in line where my knot is here on the other side, okay? And then I just pull the yarn through. So on my ends, what I do is I like to go through twice just to secure my ends, my center, and then the other end up the other side. I run that through 2 times to really secure that, because join is always going to be a stress point there. Okay, so that's how I do that edge, and then maybe I will come up to the stitch next to it. Okay. I just sew it however I think that it looks the best, and then I'm going to secure it 1 stitch back, and I'm just feed that right through the center. You can do that if you want, and that will really secure that corner join, and then bring it up through the other end. All right, and now I'm up along to the next stitch here. So I go through the 2 and then the 2 below. And then I'm going to work the mattress stitch all the way across, but I just take a little extra time for this beginning stitch just to make sure that doesn't come undone. So then I jump over. In fact, I went down 1 too many. Over to the next 2 stitches and the next stitch over on top. It's back and forth, back and forth. I don't want to over tighten, because I did on this first one a little bit in the corner, and then it's going to cause it to pucker and tug in rather than laying. See, you can see a little bit right here, but when I adjust it, it lays fine, but I can still tell it's a little tight. Okay, and then when you get to your corner, you can go in and out a couple of times. You don't have to go around like a whip stitch, but it depends on your yarn. Mine blended so well, that's what I did on that end. Here I am at the corner. Make sure it's the front and back loops that you're catching on both pieces, top and the bottom. All right, and then now I'm going to go down to the other side, the stitch next to it. Okay, and then I'm going to go back through, and because this stitch below was actually just part of the strand was a little bit loose, so I am catching that as well. And then I'm going to meet you at this other end and finish off. Okay, I just went through my stitch before last. Going to my last stitch. Alright, so this will be enough to double secure that end and then sew them in. So here is my beginning tail from the work. So I am going to go over to the next stitch. I have the free end going up, bring that through, and then go back through the other side, both stitches attaching the top and bottom together. Make sure that's nice and secure. It's not, because this is, you're going to be putting this over your head in off and on. I think I'm going to even go up on this side one more time, and I think I'm just going to bury it, go underneath this time, and then down through. And you can go take your yarn, okay, wherever you think it's going to blend the most, and go on to the inside of the work. And then this is where you can secure it and start burying your ends if you like. You can pick up a loop, make a little knot, just as an added measure, and weave in your ends as usual. Make sure it doesn't poke through to the other side. Okay, I will finish doing that off camera, and then I'm going to weave in my tail, bring that through to the inside as well. There we go, zoomed out a little. Makes such a lovely gift for yourself, for someone else, something quick that you can, you know, whip out in a pretty short amount of time. And then this color folds over quite nicely also, and then you get that really, really thick, cushy inside on the outside too. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you will make it also. Take care, everyone. As always, thanks again for being here and being a part of my channel. Be well, stay safe, and I will see you again next time.